Question of the week time. This week's question comes from Big Jake, 6'5". Can confirm he is actually 6'5". He's big. Jake wants to know what the best Stardust and rare candy investments are in Pokemon Go. Specifically, he was asking about the Kevin 7. Kevin, also known as Down with TTP, is part of the Game Press crew, like myself, and he's promoting 7 Pokemon as being the best rare candy and Stardust investments in the game. This list includes Machamp, Mewtwo, Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Raikou, and Tyranitar. Many of these Pokemon are what I recommend people use to attack gyms with. If you want to check out my gym attacking guide, link in the description on that. There's going to be a lot of link in the description on that in this video because a lot of these topics are, I could talk about them forever, and I already have talked about several of them in another video. So to save time for everybody, maybe you've already seen it, you don't want it rehashed, maybe you want more details on that without sitting through an hour-long video, well, that's why I've got links in the description, right? The only non-legendary ones to make this list are Tyranitar, which is basically a legendary on his own, and Machamp, which is the ultimate Blissey counter, best fighting type in the game. However, there are some really good Pokemon out there that don't make the Kevin 7 that are also worth your Stardust and your rare candy. For example, Kevin conceded that Shadowclaw Gengar would be one such Pokemon to make the list, but then it'd be the Kevin 8, and Kevin 7 sounds way better, you know? Yeah, we actually talked before I started working on this content, so we're all on the same page here, and Kevin definitely agrees that there are other Pokemon, but I also agree with Kevin that these 7 are by far the quote-unquote objectively best Pokemon to invest in. The main reason why these 7 Pokemon are so good is because they're really good in the format right now, they have extreme meta relevancy, and they're also really future-proofed, as in it's unlikely that they're going to be replaced anytime soon, if at all, barring major game mechanic changes. Areas where the Kevin 7 kind of falls short is the present meta relevancy, which is Raikou is really good against, you know, flying and water type Pokemon, but now we got Smackdown Tyranitar to take care of flying type Pokemon, and in our current meta we're more concerned about the Regis, which are weak to fighting and often fire type Pokemon. In that sense, if you were to make an investment into a Moltres, an Entei, or a Blastoise and Charizard, those would probably be good ideas right now because we're fighting Regice, and then eventually we're going to be fighting Registeel. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should invest in a fire type. It's just more reasonable now than it would be in any other meta format. Unless it's a meta format where they're weak to fire, of course, right? So you gotta stay up to date with these things. Additionally, we just got done with a random Articuno day, and presumably we're going to get a Moltres and Zapdos day, which also has an influence on what's good to power up right now. If you don't have a whole mess of Smackdown Tyranitars, then investing in another Rock-type Pokemon would probably be a good idea. The best one to invest in, other than Smackdown Tyranitar, would be the Rock Throw Stone Edge Golem, especially against Zapdos because its ground typing gives it that immunity to your resistance. It won't have the DPS of Smackdown Tyranitar, there's no competing with that, but as far as being a very solid, very good investment for these flying type raids, Golem's where it's at, aside from Tyranitar. So if you don't have the exclusive, essentially legacy Community Day move Smackdown, Golem is an extremely good other option. But you already knew that. Another thing not perfectly captured by the Kevin 7 are Pokemon that are effectively as good as members of the Kevin 7. For example, Rayquaza is undoubtedly the supreme, but Dragonite isn't that far behind it and is much more reasonable to obtain. In fact, right now you can't obtain a Rayquaza, so if you missed out, you're going to keep missing out, and if you're holding off on powering up a Dragonite because of Rayquaza existing, well, that'd be kind of silly, in my opinion at least. If you've been following the Swagman for a while now, you already know that I feel Machamp and Hariyama are basically the same Pokemon in performance. I will concede that Machamp is overall better in more scenarios and would overall be the slightly better investment, but if you caught a really high level Hariyama or Makahita with a weather boost or something like that, then closing the gap between whatever level it's at now and whatever your target level is, it's much shorter and is therefore a better Stardust investment. So, right? I mean, my team, I've got 3 powered up Machamps and I got 2 powered up Makuhitas. In fact, the Makuhitas aren't even powered up because I caught them at level 35, so, right? Yeah, swag on. Another aspect not covered by the Kevin 7 is which Pokemon are the better long-term investments. Now, all of the Kevin 7 are certainly good long-term investments, but Groudon and Kyogre and Rayquaza all have the potential to power creep on themselves, depending on how Niantic decides to handle their exclusive moves. If they do it like Community Day, well then all those Kyogres you powered up can't get Origin Pulse, and I guess you gotta power up your Origin Pulse Kyogres now, right? Another area that's kind of missed by the Kevin 7 is defenders. Now I know that's kind of a low blow because the Kevin 7 is specific to attacking Pokemon, but defending Pokemon, investing in a couple of those could be pretty rewarding depending on your local area and depending on what you already have. For example, if you don't already have a maxed out Blissey with Dazzling Gleam, it could be a very worthwhile investment for you if you're looking for something to dump your Stardust and Rare Candy into. While it doesn't sound like much because of CP decay and the gym meta being relatively dead, throwing in a maxed out Blissey in a gym can more or less guarantee in most areas of the world that that gym is not going to be touched for a good, 3 to 4 hours. Another good Pokemon to complement Blissey, assuming it's already in the gym, is Snorlax, especially with that Body Slam. Right now, Snorlax with Body Slam is accessible. It's a legacy move, but right now it's accessible. You can catch it, you can hatch it, and you can get it from those research breakthrough rewards at the time of making this video. So maxing one of those out also gives a similar effect to Blissey and gives a much greater effect when paired with Blissey. You can say that they're both weak to Machamp, but Blissey and Snorlax are so strong that this weakness doesn't even look like a conventional weakness compared to other Pokemon with weaknesses in the game. Other good investments for Stardust and Rare Candy, as far as gym defense goes, are Chansey and Slaking. Now, as far as using them for gym defense, the strategies are a little bit more derivative. If you're interested in gym defense, I highly suggest checking out my Ultimate Gym Defense Guide, the King Strat. I'll have a link to the video and the article on it in the description if you want some further reading, unlocking the mysteries of gym defense in Pokemon Go in this relatively poor meta, but kind of an eye-opener. Now, another kind of related topic to this is who the best Rare Candy sinks are. Maybe you're not looking to power up, you're trying to be frugal with your Stardust, but if your Pokemon pack is busting at the seams with like 700 plus rare candies, well, you gotta put them somewhere, right? And putting them in the trash, let's not put them in the trash, right? That's kind of a waste of rare candy right there. Yeah, my recommendation, if you check out my item management video, it's a little dated, but link in the description if you're interested. But my recommendation still stands to maintain roughly 200 rare candies. If you start to go over like 300 or 400, then it's time to look for something to put these rare candies into. Now you could put these rare candies into any member of the Kevin 7, or these gym defenders I just repped, or any other attacker that is good for one reason or another. But if you're not using them, over time, your investment in that Pokemon stock might be squandered. This kind of opens the floor to the question, well, what are the best rare candy sinks, especially if you're not looking to power up anything anytime soon? Kind of complicated. An obvious answer would be to just drop it into Chanseys so you can evolve more Blisseys, so you can spread more of these monsters around the world. But if you already have several relatively good Blisseys, then maybe that's not something you'd be into. Other really good investments include Mewtwo, Tyranitar, and Rayquaza, since they're relatively hard to get exclusive Pokemon, and having multiple of them powered up is a pretty good idea. If you only have 1 or 2 Mewtwo powered up, you're probably going to power up a third one someday if you get a third Mewtwo, and if you haven't gotten your first one yet, my heart goes out to you. It's pretty rough going. I hope they make Mewtwo more accessible. But yeah, dumping rare candy into Mewtwo or Tyranitar or Rayquaza, something that you will want to power up down the line, but maybe not right now, probably a good investment. Also, kind of a rogue strat, and definitely not 100% advisable, but if you are busting at the seams with rare candy and you're not level 40 yet, then dumping your excess rare candy into evolution Pokemon for experience, such as Pidgey, Weedle, Wurmple.
Where's Party Hair Wurmple? What have you done with him? Why are you keeping him from us? Why can't the Pokemon players have what they want and need? Why are you holding out on these unfulfilled promises?
Those types of Pokemon could help, accelerate your mass evolutions and is a pretty reasonable strategy, especially since we've got double EXP, which turn into quad EXP events. Not a bad move. Now, it's not the greatest use of your rare candy of all time, by no means, but if you're busting at the seams with it and you're not going to put into anything else anyways, then definitely a good idea to do that. Definitely a rogue idea, but a decent idea nonetheless. Also, I should probably do a video on this soon, but I'm quite certain Gen 4 is going to be coming out in the fall. And there are a list of Pokemon that we have now that have evolutions in Gen 4. In the description, I have a link of the Pokemon that get these evolutions in Gen 4. As far as their meta relevancy, which ones are the good, which ones are the bad, I should probably do a video on that topic just to keep you guys informed. To recap, the Kevin 7, definitely really good Stardust and rare candy investments. As far as being the best investments to make all the time, you really have to consider the present and the immediate future meta. I think more than anything else, if you already have a set squad of Pokemon and you don't really have any trouble taking on the current challenges in the game, it's always much more rewarding to save your Stardust and rare candy to spend it on something that's more meta relevant in the future. While we can try to predict what's happening in the future, we really don't know until we get there. And Niantic could make a Game Master update, change how battle mechanics are done, introduce abilities, status effects, which could really warp which Pokemon we consider valuable. And when that happens, do you want to be the player sitting on 1,000,000 Stardust ready to rock and roll? Or do you want to be like, yeah, I got like 100,000, I can power up one thing kinda? Right? So at the end of the day, if you're having a good time and you're able to tackle all these different challenges already, always save your Stardust. Ultimately, how people spend their Stardust and rare candy is pretty individualistic. Really depends on what your goals are in the game. But I really hope that this content has kind of helped direct you towards some better ideas, or have given you some food for thought as far as what you should spend your Stardust and rare candy on, or maybe validates decisions that you're already going to make. If you have any questions regarding this content, then comment below, let me know. I'll be very happy to answer. And if you like this content and you want to see more of it, well, then you know to hit that subscribe button, right?